of the world, top of the pop.
Hello and welcome to our Wonder Women podcast, the main podcast for the business magazine forwomen.com. In our podcast, just like in our magazine, we're focused on promoting women's voices in business, technology, STEM, politics, sports, arts, and culture. We are changing how women are represented in the media in order to change how society sees women so that we move towards a more balanced society that allows humans to be human, that allows women and men to be all that they can and want to be, regardless of what society and quote-unquote normal means. This drive for equality, or better yet, this move towards fairness in representation in our business and personal lives, will drive positive change in society, but it will also help the corporate world increase revenues and reduce cost. My name is Monica Antohi. I'm the founder of the business magazine forwomen.com and today's host. In today's podcast, we're looking at the financial aspect of startups and venture capital funds and what is the women's role in status there. Today we're speaking with Dr. Sara Brand. She's currently the founding general partner at Twowall Ventures, a venture capital firm out of Austin, Texas, and their main focus is funding women-led startups, which is rare, but what's rarer is the fact that the general partners there are, in this case, both women. Even though their investor base is not comprised entirely by women, which is a good thing, it is good to see that at least we can point to one venture capital fund that is 100% led by women. This is a very enlightening conversation about the state of startups in the country, the funding that goes to women-run startups, and the number of women at the decision-making levels across corporations and startups, and the differences between a company with a boardroom comprised of all men versus a company with a boardroom comprised with a more balanced ratio of male to female. But before I get you to our podcast, I'd like to bring about the Business Magazine for Women's first annual conference, aptly named More Women, More Money, coming up in January in Houston, Texas, where our keynote speakers and panels will focus on creating the space for bringing more women at the decision-making levels within corporations in a drive to, yes, bring a more equal business world, but also in a drive to increase revenue for corporations that subscribe to this business approach. If you want to learn more, head on over to morewomenmoremoney.com and stay up to date with the speakers coming up and the ways that you can get involved. Tickets are also available for purchase, so head on over to morewomenmoremoney.com and get your early bird discount. We're looking forward to seeing you there. Now let's get you to our conversation with Sara. I would like to introduce everybody. So hello, Dr. Brand.
Hi. Great to be here.
I'm actually going to go back down and call you Sara. It's going to be easier for you. So let's start by getting a bit of background on you and tell our listeners who you are and how did you get to become a starting fund. How did you get to work in venture capital?
So my first round in venture capital, I'll kind of lead up to that, and there's sort of a second story of how I got back into venture capital. But my education was all mechanical engineering, actually. So yes. I got my undergrad at UT Austin, and then went to Berkeley for my master's and Ph.D. And spent some time in technical roles at Intel and Applied Materials, really focused on the semiconductor electronics industries. And then shifted gears. My focus for my research work and my PhD was in green design and manufacturing, and I got minors in public health and energy and resources. So I was really interested in greening up the electronics industry, realizing during my lifetime that one of the biggest impacts for an environment would be electronics, with the heavy metals used, yes, with the in production, with the energy used during their useful lives, with the shorter and shorter lives of the devices and proliferation of devices. So had technical roles in that area, and then kind of ran up the career ladder as far as I could, actually, in the environmental space. And they wanted me to do things that weren't motivating to me. They weren't anything to do with environment. So I shifted gears and went into strategic management consulting. So I worked at McKinsey & Company out in the San Francisco office, where the head of the semiconductor practice sat. So I was very comfortable with the industry, but doing non-technical work there. And then from there went into venture capital, also out in the Bay Area. That was just the perfect balance of work for me, because I didn't want to lose my technical roots. Yeah. And so wanted to stay relevant and meet with entrepreneurs and think about, the next challenges and solutions to the next challenges technically, but really liked being hands-on with the portfolio companies as well, and wearing more of that management consulting hat. So that was my path for getting into venture capital originally, and knew it was the place for me, and that it was the perfect blend for me of using my technical and business
skills, and also the fact that you know so much about technology. It's probably very easy for you to actually look at companies that are super tech heavy, because you would understand everything that's happening behind. So it's a huge bonus. You don't just come with the money, you come with the knowledge as well. So and the business consulting as well. So you're the full package when it comes to what you offer as a venture capital woman.
Yeah, well, I thought sort of. I mean, for me, it was the full package. But then I realized to be even a more effective venture capitalist, I wanted to get more operational experience, not just be a management consultant telling people, what I think they should do and then leaving. But that's why I actually went to go be in an operational role in a company before coming back into venture capital. And so I joined Advanced Micro Devices, actually working directly for the CEO, and just it was a great opportunity, and had several operational roles where I ran different business units there, but also spent a lot of time working on big strategic M&A types of projects across the company. So saw a lot of the other side of the venture capital equation of these VC-backed companies getting, diligenced and valued and acquired, and then integrated ultimately into a much larger company. So that's what actually brought me back to Austin as well. So all the leadership for AMD sits in Austin.
Okay. So, yes, we know you're in Austin, and you were in the Valley, the Silicon Valley a long time, and you were in New York as well for a little bit.
No,
okay.
No New York.
I
go to New York a lot, but I never lived there.
Maybe that's why I remember seeing an interview with you in New York. Probably that's what happened.
Yeah.
So right now you're the co-founder at Twowall Ventures. Right? So It's a capital firm that is led by women, and it's funding women startups.
Yep.
What spurred the creation of the company? So, and you want to talk about a little bit about the company and about how did you guys do this?
Sure. I'll start with sort of what led me to this this idea, which was, back at AMD, I spent a little over 10 years there, and got a lot of operational experience under my belt, more than I originally intended to. But it was a very busy time. There was a lot of turnover. I worked for 3 of the 4 CEOs during my tenure, directly. So it felt like many different companies in a way. And I had 2 kids at that time. I co-founded a company with my husband during that time, so I was just kind of like holding on to life. Exactly. So during the later part of my tenure there, I was asked to be the executive sponsor of their Global Women's Forum, because I was the only woman who was a vice president who had any technical or operational background out of, I think at the time it was about 15,000 employees.
Oh, and wow.
Yeah. So that was really eye-opening. I didn't believe them at first, actually. I thought they were just trying to, twist my arm to do another volunteer type of, thing, and I didn't need another volunteer assignment. But I looked at the list of about 12 VPs and realized, they're in HR or legal or marketing or finance. But I was it in terms of, technical, operational. And so that really opened my eyes to the fact that I had been unaware of it until that point, that they had to point it out to me and prove it. But because I was yeah, exactly. I was a mechanical engineer where literally I had the bathroom to myself, I joke around about, but it was true. And then, started a brewery where we hired all men. We did hire our first woman. But, semiconductors and venture capital are all very, very male dominated. So I just had been so blind to it because I was so used to it that then I was really alarmed that I hadn't realized this. And so started doing my homework to see how that had happened, and, what should I do with this group, or should I even do anything with this group in terms of this, Global Women's Forum, and came across this McKinsey & Company study that showed from, it was a work done, I think in 2012 called Women Matters. And it was one of their first research papers in this space. They've done a lot more since then, but it was basically a big database of publicly traded, mainly companies. Yes. And they found that the top quartile of those companies with the most women in senior leadership positions saw, I think it's 41% higher return on equity and 56% higher EBIT margins. So just tremendous financial outperformance. So I started getting them really interested.
Big numbers,
Exactly. How to move the needle and what other big, especially tech companies had done to move the needle. And then realizing I wanted to get back into venture capital, started looking at those numbers and saw the same financial outperformance of women-led companies, yet an even larger disparity in terms of who was focused on this, or who was, the women in venture or the women entrepreneurs getting venture dollars. And then I actually realized I had never met another woman in venture. And that's when I really had my aha moment of like, wow, this is crazy. Because I was thinking it's going to take a long time for corporate America to move the needle. And I really started to appreciate that as I tried to,
change it from within.
Yeah, exactly. And then I thought, well, in venture capital, that's really actually a tremendous opportunity, because VCs can invest in multiple new companies every year out of their fund, so they can take the latest data and invest with it. And so I figured I'd actually missed the boat, and started looking at it.
Little do you know.
Yeah, right. I had not missed the boat. And so that's when everything just kind of came together, and I realized I've never met another woman. There's nobody in Texas doing this, nobody in the whole southern, southwestern, central U.S. doing this. There were about half a dozen funds on the coasts that had, VC funds that had any kind of gender diversity strategy. And so I just realized I have to do this. This is the best business opportunity I've ever seen. And I have a lot of opinions of how it should be done, so I need to just do it. And that's when I met Carrie, I started telling people I've never met another woman in venture capital. And, I'm going to start this fund. And several people actually introduced me to her. She had just moved back from Philadelphia, where she was the CEO of Dream It Ventures. And she had just raised a $20 million fund and started what was called Dream It, or is called Dream It Athena, which was the first women entrepreneurs focused kind of bolt-on program at a top-tier accelerator.
Nice.
So she was really, appreciative of the challenges and the opportunity, and came on as an advisor. We just had lunch, and obviously,
it turned into a lot more.
Yeah, exactly. And then she started advising me, because she just raised a $20 million fund. But then by the time I started fundraising, she joined on board because she couldn't stay away. So
that's awesome. And obviously this is what led you to fund women. You saw the numbers in the industry. You saw what it means to have more women in leadership positions within companies, and how that whole company dynamic changes and it becomes more cooperative, and how it's being seen by not just by the employees, but by the consumers as more human, how it, increases revenue, and so on and so on. Yet in venture capital, 96% is men.
Yeah.
So the funds belong to 96% of the men. Basically. So how is that possible? Where are the women? And why are we having more women in venture capital? How is that possible?
Yeah, how is it possible? I don't know, but I can tell you, I think, why we need more women in venture capital. And the numbers have gone down. I think they were around 10% in 99 of VC partners were women, and then it's gone down and down. And so now there's different studies showing, whatever single digit number of partners in the VC world today are women. But most of those partners are general counsels or CFOs or COOs or venture partners that literally firms put on the website to make themselves look,
not necessarily
more diverse.
Yeah.
But the estimate of how many of those partners are actually making investment decisions and leading deals and deciding which companies are going to invest in and joining the boards is estimated to be 1% of the VC partners are women.
That's worse than I thought it was.
I know. I hope it's changing, frankly, with all the attention in the industry. But so far, the numbers have been heading in the wrong direction, actually. But what's positive, just on two quick positive notes to get the more levity into the conversation, is that for angel investors, those numbers have been increasing over the same time period.
So at the lower level, women are more active.
Yes, exactly.
Do you think it's a comfort level?
I think there have been a lot of programs that have been focused on, training women of capacity to be angel investors.
Okay.
And so I think that the needle has moved recently, because it was less than 5%, in the 99 era. And now it's up to, I think the latest ACA numbers, the Angel Capital Association, is like 22% or something are women.
Pretty good.
I mean, it's still 22% or whatever, but much better than one.
22% is our numbers in politics. So yeah, we know what's happening there.
Increasing, but it's been steadily increasing. So I think there's been a lot of attention on training and getting women investors engaged, with building their own portfolios and investing in their own communities. Whereas I think in the venture capital ecosystem, it's this really old school, the epitome of the old boys network, right? I mean, it's not like you hire for a venture capital partner and have a diverse candidate slate. You're in this firm for a decade before you have maybe the opportunity to have a partner level position, or you've made, a lot of money as an independent entrepreneur, and then you bring your own wealth to a VC fund, or somebody, and you've been, so it's not like a typical situation where you can disrupt that industry quickly. There's not a motivation to do that, or a supportive infrastructure in order to diversify. So anyway, I think that's why the numbers have been so bad for women, and frankly, the women that have done well in the industry have left, right? And they've been pretty vocal about that. Of I don't need to put up with this type of environment. There's many other things I can do with my career, and maybe it's becoming an active angel investor themselves, and building their own portfolio. So that's one positive data point. But the reason we need more women investors at the venture capital decision-making tables is that even without a gender diversity strategy, when there are women partners at VC funds, they are 2 times as likely to invest in a team with a woman founder, and 3 times more likely to invest in a company with a woman CEO. So that's just natural human behavior. That's not based on any gender lens investment strategy or anything. So that's I think very important, obviously, to get more women at the table, just so more women entrepreneurs get the money to scale their ideas. But then also there was a really interesting study that came out that showed that when women VC investors invest in women entrepreneurs, the chance of a successful exit increases by 32.1%.
Oh, wow. That's versus a male investor.
Right.
Wow.
Yes. So there's some kind of magic that happens when women are investing in women. And, the study didn't say why, because who knows?
Of course
why.
it is.
It's I don't understand any of the social dynamics really of a why, but we just go on the numbers. We're investing on the numbers.
I think we can communicate easier. I mean, I'm not saying that we can't communicate really well with men. That's not at all what I'm saying. But I think there's a deeper level of understanding sometimes when there's a woman-to-woman conversation. And sometimes men could be intimidated by that, or they might not understand all the nuances of what we're saying. So part of it could be that. But anyway, for whatever you and your partner Carrie are doing, thank you, because we showcase a lot of women founders, female founders in every issue. And it's sad the number of women-led startups versus male-led startups. And as it is, they're not getting the exposure that they need. And we're doing the best we can. So getting them in front of women investors, it's spectacular. It's really, really good. I'm so glad to speak with you today and to introduce you to everybody that's listening to us usually. And I'm going to be reading the magazine. So super excited, and thank you so much for what you guys are doing. South by Southwest, I was on, in a room with you on the Women Investing in Women, and you actually said something like, it's not male investors against women entrepreneurs, it's culture against women entrepreneurs.
Right.
Can you please elaborate on that? Because I think that's a super important fact.
Yeah, it is important, I think, for women entrepreneurs to understand that, because there was a great piece of work, not great results, but very enlightening results from the Columbia Business School, looking at TechCrunch Disrupt, pitch competition.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah. Oh,
yes. And so there's a really good article that was in the Harvard Business Review, last June, I think it was, sometime last summer. Yeah, and it really just showed all of the investors' questions to the women entrepreneurs and the men entrepreneurs. And despite whether they were, women or men investors, they consistently asked the women more prevention-oriented questions like, well, what if this happens? Or, what are your mitigation plans for this? Whereas they consistently ask the men promotion-oriented questions of like, well, how much bigger could it be? Or what if I give you 10 million, then what? Or, and so there's just these little knife cuts of question after question when you're asking a woman all these risk mitigation questions versus you're throwing curveballs to the, or not, that's not the right, I shouldn't do sports analogies. You're giving them a layup. You're giving the guys a layup. And so as women entrepreneurs, understanding that there's a cultural bias that you have to overcome when you're presenting your solutions and reorient those prevention-oriented questions to promotion-oriented questions. And it takes some practice and some awareness and not getting frustrated, which is easy to do when you see it happening,
I want to get to that a little bit later, but I want to talk about culture and how important culture is in any sort of conversation when it comes to money and women, investing in women versus men. So how do we change that culture? Like, can you give us like one specific step that we can start implementing right now that would improve culture, by this much, so then, we can at least get it moving in the right direction?
I'm not sure if this is how you think I'd answer the question, but it's my answer, which is I think women understanding that the power that they have as investors is like, it's a mindset shift that I think can change everything. Because women are making 85% of consumer purchase decisions. So they're making micro investments literally every day with every dollar they spend, of whether they're, buying something at Walmart or Whole Foods or Amazon. Yeah. And so they're deciding what products and what companies and ultimately what management teams are surviving or not in the market. And so if they think of themselves as investors in that context, but also in healthcare, right? They're making 80% of all healthcare decisions. And it's 18% of our GDP as a country is healthcare spend. And so they're making their health decisions for themselves, their children, their aging parents, their parents-in-law, they're often their spouses. And so, that's moving markets. And those are just, some of those are dollar investments, some of those are bigger than that, especially in the healthcare arena. But then in the macro investment arena too, I think women, so when we started fundraising, we were told, don't actually bother trying to fundraise from women, because women are really high net worth women are very philanthropic and spend their time thinking about their, philanthropy, but they have wealth managers to deal with their investments. Yes. And we found that is another bias, that's not true or has changed or is changing. But women control about 40% of U.S. investable assets today. And it's projected to go up to 2/3 of all U.S. investable assets in the next 12 years. So it's the largest shift of wealth that the world has ever seen to U.S. women. Wow. Yes.
Is it the baby boomer generation? Is that
it's a number of things. It's high net worth women are growing self-made, high net worth women are growing 2x that of men. Also, the average with divorce rates and second marriages, the average widow is now 55. So there's some inheritance, or whatever that is. Yeah, and then the baby boomer generation passing it down, to their and women live longer too. Correct. And so, so it's a lot of dynamics which are creating that over the next between now and 2030. But if women start, realizing, and they are, because I've seen it firsthand when raising this fund with how many of our investors are women, really just, realizing the power they have, especially women who have been, really high net worth and philanthropic. If you look at a foundation, which is often the same model as people's own personal wealth, foundations have a big endowment that kicks off, 2% a year or whatever it might be, whatever the model is, to put into grants, to give away. Well, same thing with your investments. You've got, 98% of your investments doing what they're doing in the markets, and then you're giving 2% away. You can make a massive impact, whatever that is, tenfold, if more than tenfold, if you are investing aligned to your values. And so you're investing
Correct.
in kinds of companies and management teams and products that you want to see more of in the world. And more women, I think, are becoming conscious of that. And so, again, I think it's like a mindset thing of, wow, I am an investor, and I do need to be aware of what my portfolio, no matter how small it is investing in.
What I'm investing in. Actually, that's been a case for the last 3, 4, maybe 5 years with seeing this trend on the consumer side, on the investor side, looking to invest on things that matter to them. Like actually matters to them. So it's been more and more prevalent. They're still taking advice from the financial advisors, absolutely, because industry.
Right.
But at the same time, they want more investment in the environment. They want more investment in tech. They want more investment in things that actually matters to them personally. So I mean, it's already there. It's already happening. So and I don't necessarily want to say that this is a millennial necessarily thing. But I think they had something to do with it in some ways.
Women and millennials.
Women and millennials, absolutely.
Yeah, really doing it.
And so I see it as a very favorable thing that is happening, because we're going to stop being blinded by the numbers and just look at the numbers and what matters to us, or what matters to us and the numbers. So I think those two, hand in hand, they're much better than just, here's my numbers, I'm making tons of money on stuff that's destroying the environment, that's against women, that's, insert all the negative stuff that we've been investing in, as a nation, or investors worldwide. I want to go back to culture again. Based on a previous podcast, we've realized that we really need to have a section, probably a video podcast, that's called Women 101. Can you...
And what would the content be?
The content would be, how we have Millennials 101 and how to talk to millennials, how to have a meeting with millennials, and how to talk to baby boomers. Nobody's talking about how to talk to women. Nobody's talking about how to have a business meeting with a woman that's breaking down in office because of something that's happening, career-wise or business-wise, and she's confiding in you, and you freak out as her boss because you don't know what to do. So we're taking it upon ourselves to actually go through some of those scenarios and kind of explain it to men and to some women that is perfectly fine, that this is okay, and it's actually beneficial to the company because, many, many reasons. So do you have a suggestion for us on that?
Well, I mean, what I was thinking of when you're talking about that is the backlash we've seen from all the sexual discrimination lawsuits that have come up, across all industries, but in the venture capital industry in particular, is that I've heard of a lot of VCs in Silicon Valley being coached to not meet with women entrepreneurs because it's too big of a risk to their reputation.
Oh, wow.
And so it's like bone chilling, right? It's because the numbers are so low already of 2.19%, I think, were the PitchBook numbers for 2017, holding steady 6 years in a row of, companies with all female founders or a woman CEO who've gotten, in terms of VC dollars, it's like 2.19% are going to women. So that may actually go backwards a little bit.
It's sounding like it.
Before it improves. And I think that this is work that we have to do culturally to work through this to come out the other side. But I think that coaching maybe well-intentioned men in the venture capital industry of how do you continue to meet with women entrepreneurs, which is an imperative as an investor, to be looking at these companies that have shown significantly better financial outperformance, to be investing in gender diverse teams. So what are the right ways to do that? And what are the right ways to be an effective board member on a women-led, company's board? Because I think when you were talking about maybe, saying about how women investors and women entrepreneurs have some kind of special connection, communicate better, what I was thinking of is, it's less risky, when it's a woman and a woman to go to a bar to have that conversation. Absolutely. Or, call them late at night and whatever, just there's less of a barrier there, right. I think. and there's not as many social, norms that you have to work around or something. And so I think that's what's really difficult for a lot of, men investing in women who just aren't sure, what's appropriate and are concerned and maybe too concerned to even meet with them now, let alone invest with them. And so I think that would be a great Women 101 topic.
Thank you. I'm going to definitely
learn how to do it.
We're going to do it. We'll figure out a way because I think it's super important at this point because especially after the Me Too and after, everything that's happened and the backlash against that and everything with it to get it to the point where, like you're talking about, the investors not even wanting to take a meeting with a woman founder. Right. It's just insane. It should be going the other way, not backwards. We shouldn't be going backwards 50 years or more at this point. We should be figuring out ways how to work with each other better. Respectful for everybody, because I think that's what was missing before. So anyway, so what does investing in gender matter mean? How do you see the impact?
Well, so I think that, we talk about it really as a financial thesis. Yes. So when we just say, here are the numbers, there's a lot of social dynamics we can talk about, maybe why things happen the way they do, but the money or the dollars, speak for themselves. And when there are more women leaders at the helm, companies do significantly better financially, whether it's those publicly traded companies that, was that first study I came across that McKinsey and Company did, or small businesses. American Express has looked at big swath of small businesses where they define the most successful businesses as over 10 million in revenue. And those are growing. The women-led or women-owned small businesses that are successful are growing 50% faster than the male-led small businesses. And then when you look at the venture capital arena, there's a lot of different data points, but one of my favorites is First Round Capital, who is probably the most prolific investor in seed stage investing. Okay. About 2 years ago now, probably looked at a big decades worth of their investments and their exits and just mined it for whatever findings they might find without any agenda of what they were going to find, but found that their companies with a woman founder, at least one woman founder, performed 63% better than their returns were 63% better than their all male founding teams, which is still I think it's the latest numbers are 83% or something of all venture capital backed companies don't have a single woman on the executive team. So it's the vast, vast majority of VC backed, companies still don't have a woman, but they perform 63% better when they have a woman.
How is that so hard to compute? How is that such a difficult concept to absorb?
Yeah. So that's what gender matters means to me. All right. As a first point, but there's lots of other layers to it, but I just try to stick with that one until the needle moves.
Hopefully it's going to move quickly. You were a female founder, like we talked about, and you're in VC, so you're on both sides of the equation, right?
Yes.
Did you raise money for the brewing company, for the 512 brewing? Okay. So, but which one did you find easier, being a female founder or being a VC?
Oh, well, I mean, it almost doesn't count, my female founding experience. I started a business, but I was working full time while my husband started the business. So I basically invested in the business and, put my strategic management consulting hat on and helped with the business plan and with the financing and all that kind of stuff.
That is female founder. That's not.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But it's very much his baby. Yeah. And but it's our baby though. It's our most expensive baby actually, but okay.
Hopefully it's a little bit of fun too, because it is a brewing company, right? So
yes, exactly. So it's really, he's living his dream. This is his dream of to do in retirement. We ended up looking at the business model and looking at the opportunity and saying, this is something we have to do now. This is great. And it worked out really well.
And Austin has got some spectacular beer. So it's a great environment to be for that as well. So, but do you find it easier to, when you're interested in taking on a new investor, not a new investor, a new, Hold on.
Investment.
Investment. Thank you. When you're looking at female founders, they come to you with, okay, so this is who we are. What are you looking for? What are you interested in? What are your, let's talk about the company a little bit more, and let's talk about what you're interested in at Twowall Ventures.
So we have a couple key investment criteria where we put every company through these filters. One is has to have at least one woman of significant decision-making influence on that founding early stage executive team. And then we're looking at investing in the markets of what we're calling sustainable consumer and consumer health. Mm-hmm. So we're leveraging the fact that 85% of consumer purchase decisions are made by women, right, and 80% of healthcare decisions are made by women. So we think gender diverse teams, in these markets where the vast majority of purchases are being made by women, will have an advantaged position in understanding that customer and market need a little bit better, so they can design products that meet those pain points better, right, and understand. Yeah, it's pretty duh.
Self-explanatory.
It's the duh investment thesis. Yeah, no one else is doing it. So anyway, so those are the first two filters that we, actually we have some great venture fellows, like interns, mm-hmm, that put the companies through those filters. So then Carrie and I are looking at the companies that fit through those filters already. And then we look for probably the next big filter is that we're looking for early-ish acquisition exits. So we're a seed stage fund that's $20 million. So we have first investments of between like $250,000 and $500,000, and we have 2/3 of our investment assets for follow-on financing. Mm-hmm. But we're really looking at companies that will be very capital efficient and not need more than a Series A, maybe a Series B, and are looking at getting an acquisition within a pretty short time frame, so we can return the multiples that we need to our investors. It's all VC funds are 10 years. And so there's a certain type of company that we're looking for. And we talk to the entrepreneurs very transparently up front about that, of who are the potential acquirers and what do they value? What kind of companies are they buying and what are the valuations that they're buying at and how are they calculating those valuations? Are they buying the team or the IP or the, revenue, and at what level does the revenue have to be, to get on their radar? So that's more the conversation that we look at if we invest now, how many follow-ons do we expect and how can we participate in those? And then what's the time frame for an acquisition and what's the range of valuation we, could anticipate for that acquisition? And does that get us the multiple we need? So that's what we really are looking at.
Okay, so you were talking about the team itself at the investment team. What are the qualities that you're looking for in this team? And one more question. Have you funded anybody that's been like a solo, like a one founder versus a team?
Well, so you mean like where there's only one founder,
yes,
but there's a team under them already?
Right.
Yes, we've done that. Yes. So we've had 3 investments. 2 of them have just a single founder, and 1 has 2 co-founders.
Okay. What are the key qualities that you're looking for in besides the financial aspect? Because I think it's more than that. I think you're also investing in the people that.
Absolutely.
So what are you looking for? Like things that matter to you guys?
I think probably the biggest thing is somebody who's really going to persevere and let me get 2 biggest things. Perseverance, because it's going to get ugly no matter what. Even if
Amen.
It goes swimmingly, it's never easy. And so somebody who really has true grit and has hopefully demonstrated that, previously. In all cases, that's been the case that they've had history of showing that perseverance. And then the second thing is transparency. I think, investing in the early stage, especially, is really, people say it's like a marriage. I don't know if it's like a marriage, but it's obviously a very intimate type of, relationship where you are in the trenches together and going through hard times together, and like true colors are going to come out. And so you really need to be able to seriously trust that person and know that they're going to bring challenges to you and work through them together, and that there's trust and transparency on both sides. And so that's been key when we look back at who we invested in. They told us things that were not something you would think you would tell somebody that's potentially looking at your company as an investment. But that was so telling to us, that they're being completely honest, and that says more. That okay, they're going to tell us everything, and we're going to be able to work through whatever it is together. So those are the two top qualities. But I'd say a third, if I could have one, is knowing that they can pivot. Because when we invest at the early stage, by the time it exits, it's going to be different than what we invested in on paper.
Right, it changes.
Yeah, it changes. And so somebody who can take input and pivot with the customer and the market changes, and even investor, changes, whatever, that they can adapt to the changes that will for sure happen.
And they happen quick. So you have to think on your feet. Like you really have to think on your feet and go with the market where it's taking you, basically. So I'm kind of done with the heavy hitters.
Right.
If that's okay. What drives you, and who's your inspiration? Or who's your inspiration? What gets you up in the morning?
Yeah. Well, wait, what was your last question?
What gets you up in the morning?
Oh, what gets me up in the morning? Well, I mean, I love my life. I have my dream job and 2 healthy, lovely children, and a husband, who's wonderful and supportive and has his dream job. So it's, pretty, I don't need like a reason. Like I love getting up in the morning and doing what I do. But I'd say I didn't have any great role models actually that I looked up to, that were like, oh, wow, that's what I want to be one day. And so it took a lot of internal work to figure out what it is I wanted to do, because I didn't have those role models. And actually, I realized I had lots of fantastic mentors and more importantly, what's the word? Not supporters. But people, I think, mentors are overrated in terms of people just giving you random advice. I think advocates. I had a lot of advocates at work that pulled me up and challenged me. And,
awesome.
So that was, that's where I give most of my credit to in terms of like my career trajectory and learnings were those advocates. But I didn't want to do any job that I saw when I grew up, and people kept on asking me, the CEOs be like, okay, what do you want to do? Like, nothing. I don't see like, who on my staff do you want their job? Like, nobody. And nor do I want yours. And so then I realized like there's just a lack of people I could identify and like associate with, and that's the biggest issue I'm trying to solve, is that as women we don't see other women doing kinds of roles using their like feminine power.
Bingo.
And so I realized the fastest way to fix that problem is not in the corporate world, but funding fantastic women founders who have great ideas and who can kind of bypass that whole corporate infrastructure and then have these successful exits and, reinvest in the community and have a lot of people, seeing those as role models. So I really had to kind of think about what is it that I truly like to do and what's needed in the world and how can I match those things up.
That's fantastic. And I'm so grateful again. I'm going to say that again, that you guys are doing this because it's needed. And it's needed from an investor's point of view, and it's needed from a consumer's point of view, because if we don't get the ideas that women have, become reality, well, we're not taking care of half the market. So basically we're not being taken care of. So awesome job, you guys. Thank you so much. So let's go a little bit deeper. What's your favorite book? Like, what is your favorite book? And what books do you give out as gifts, if you do?
I think my favorite book, even though it was not my favorite read at all, was Centered Leadership by Joanne Barsh, because that's what helped me go through those hard steps of realizing, what it is that really brings me energy and what drains me and what have I been good at and how do people perceive me, and just, it's really, she's a director from McKinsey and Company.
Okay.
And just does a fantastic job of helping, peel the onion back on what really is, your core purpose, or, what's your unique thing to do in the world. And so I think I put a lot of credit to that book of helping me identify what it was that to bring me to this fund. And what I give out as a gift is a book called Get Backed. Sorry, I've got a couple on my shelf. And it's about how do you, so this is to women entrepreneurs of how do you create a great pitch deck.
Okay.
And it has lots of good examples. So that's the one I end up giving out as gifts or whatever, or give to people, just because it's a really good tutorial on how to make a great pitch deck. I'm
definitely going to read that. I have to, apparently. All right. So what would be something that would surprise us to know about you? Besides the fact that you're a Ph.D. in mechanical engineering and, and this female founder and VC and highly intelligent and Berkeley and all that.
Huh.
And mom.
I don't know. Well, I toured with the Grateful Dead back in the day.
That's awesome.
Probably wouldn't have recognized me.
That's pretty awesome. All right. All right. So one more question, and it's the final one, I promise. If you have a billboard, what would you put on it, and where would you put it? Like a massive billboard. Where would you put it?
I have no idea. Gosh. Huh. Well, probably have to do with the brewery, so that's not going to be very inspirational. I do something about the brewery. Maybe what I would do right now is I really feel like Austin is particularly well positioned to be the #1 city for women entrepreneurs because of the culture here and the success stories that we're having. And Dell Technologies did a really interesting study for many years about future-ready cities. Mm-hmm. And Austin was always in the top 10. These were, global cities in terms of talent, IT, connectivity, this kind of stuff, infrastructure. And then they put a gender lens on it a couple of years ago, and Austin fell out of the top 10. And so then they really started, understanding why, what were the different dynamics in different cities that got them into the top 10, and found that Austin fell out because of the lack of role models. And I think we have a lot of fantastic role models. We've got, the CEO of Bumble, Whitney Wolf here now, and Kendra Scott, which are, billion-dollar valuation companies. And we have Heather Brunner from WP Engine, who's raised just closed a $250 million round, which is the #3 largest round ever raised by a woman entrepreneur.
Wow.
And a whole host of, like the CEO of Unaliware, which is one of our investments, who's had an incredible track record of, she's raised well over $100 million in VC financing, sold her last company to Texas Instruments, her company before that to Apple. Wow. So we have these amazing role models. So I think I would put a big billboard, maybe on like I-35 and 6th Street area or something, with all these women entrepreneurs that are just the fantastic role models in Austin. So people see it, because if you can't see it, you can't be it. And I think just, having those women up there would move the needle even faster on Austin becoming the #1 city for women entrepreneurs.
That's awesome. And that's actually, that's exactly what we're doing. We're showcasing all these amazing women, and that's exactly what we're trying to do, be this massive billboard for everybody. And we can't be one billboard in one place, but we're going to be one magazine in front of everybody, and we're promoting as many women as we can, because without role models, we don't know what we're going to be like when we grow up. We don't know what to strive for. So having somebody that you look up to, and not necessarily following their steps, but you can see that it's possible, it matters to every little girl, because how else are we going to become, CEOs? How else are we going to become, billionaires, basically? How else are we going to invest in other women? How else are we going to do that if we don't have the women that we can look up to? So that is phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. So that's our mission too, which is really great. And so I want to thank you so very much for coming in on today's podcast. I really appreciate it, and love the honesty and how straightforward you were about everything, because we went kind of heavy on some stuff, but it's fantastic. And I also want to say thank you for everybody tuning in, and we'll have all of Sarah's information at the bottom of the podcast, and reach out to her and reach out to us so we can all bring a better future for women together. Thank you so much, Sarah, and I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Top of the world, top of the pop the.
Thanks everybody for tuning in today. I greatly appreciate you staying with us. The music for our podcast is graciously provided by our very own Wonder Woman, Cheryl B. Englehart. Check out her music and get your free music bundle at cbemusic.com. Before I let you go, I'd like to mention again our first annual conference called More Women, More Money, coming up in January 16th in Houston, Texas. Our keynote speakers and panelists will focus on creating the space for bringing more women at the decision-making levels within corporations in a drive to, yes, bring about a more equal and fair business world, but also in a drive to increase revenue for corporations that subscribe to this business approach. To learn more, head on over to morewomenmoremoney.com and get your early bird ticket and stay up to date with speakers coming up and the other ways that you can get involved, including sponsorship. That's it for us today. We're grateful to have you with us on this journey to make our society a better place for all. So please remember to subscribe and share this with your friends. Till next week. Bye.